Step on all of our toes, Craig. It's part of the fun.
Step on them, Craig.
Don't step on my toes.
Us, Craig. Step on us, Craig.
This is getting very weird very quick.
Hey there, everybody! Welcome to Annie Chatbox, episode 110, where 5 friends snuggle up in a teeny tiny space to talk about all things anime. My name is Cammie, and I will be hosting you today. My brain is a little fried because it's finals week, but I'm here. I've got my Rocco's Modern Life t-shirt on, and I'm here with other cool people that were also born in the 90s and probably get that reference. We will start with the producer of our podcast, Gregory.
Anime Janai.
Anime Janai.
Yeah, I mean, it is Anime Janai, but like...
Anime Janai.
Dun 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 dun.
That's a good song.
Yeah,
it is a good song. Mm-hmm.
Making their entrance with impeccable musical taste is the one and only Dominic.
Oh, hey.
Oh, hey.
I was just jamming over here in my corner.
Yeah,
Decided to come and hop on an episode.
Yeah, like I do. It's not like I'm forced to be here every week now, so...
Forced?
If there was someone that was forcing them to be here, it might be... not the British person that is across a lot of oceans, that Jonathan Joestar.
Hello. I'm also wearing the 90s reference t-shirt, thinking about it. I've got a t-shirt on that's got Gabumon on from Digimon on it.
Oh, there you go. And that's at least, like, anime. So you're actually sticking to the theme here today.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Glows in the dark.
And of course... Ooh. And of course, last but not least, the one, the only, the lovely, the princess in my heart, Cassie.
Oh. You know what? Move to the northwest, they said. It's cold and rainy all the time, they said. It's not.
Every summer I've been here, it just gets worse, I feel. And by July and August, I think it will be Southern California weather.
I feel like I've been gypped because I just moved up here from Southern California, and I was promised it was not going to be like Southern California. It's hot like Southern California. I hate this.
I mean, at least there's some trees.
I mean,
I visited where you were. They barely existed.
Yeah, but it's still hot. I don't go outside anyways. What do I care about trees?
That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Very good point.
And to distract my mind about impending climate change, we'll move on to our main topic for the day. And we're going to be covering a topic that was requested by one of our beloved patrons, Paul, who wanted us to discuss gateway anime. As he put it, gateway anime, or anime that you could recommend to people who've never watched anime and may want to get into it. So, I don't know about a good place to start. I will say that when I was thinking about this topic, a couple factors came to mind for me that I think are important. One of them is definitely that it's an anime that can be available in English. I think that's a good kind of safety net to have, depending on who you're with, if they are comfortable with or without subtitles, because everybody's different. Another thing that I think is pretty important is that you either have a copy of said anime or that it is able to be accessed, easily available. So on like Hulu, Netflix, give them access to your Crunchyroll. I don't know, just that it's something that's not too hard to find.
Yeah,
so those are some certain factors I thought about. Yeah. What about you guys?
I think that if you're going to try and get people into anime, you need to show them the least anime stuff that you can find.
Yes, I agree with that.
And by that I mean not oversaturated with tropes that we look at and we're like, oh, okay, it's fine, it's anime. A lot of things that I've tried to show people in the past when I didn't try and apply that rule actually turned people more off to anime than made them want to watch more. So as weird as that sounds, I think trying to start them off slow with less weird might be the best way to go about it. You know what I mean? Everyone knows what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what you mean, but that's not particularly how I would go about it. I think if I was going to show someone like try to get someone into anime who has very little exposure to it, I would actually get them into something that was kind of weird, but not like uncomfortable weird, just like this is out there,
Don't introduce them with a Doge Kobo series.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, hey, you're interested in trying to possibly watch anime? Let me show you Arrow Manga Sensei.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say. Maybe
Yeah.
something that's got a little less strangeness to it. I've come to embrace the strangeness as I've gotten older and more accustomed to the anime tropes, but, a lot of people who aren't in this medium aren't used to, teenage boys falling on a pair of breasts every 5 minutes. It just is how it is.
Yeah, and that's I knew that's exactly what you meant. It's just I just wouldn't start something that's basically just an anime, kind of that's anime but very too close to what they're already into, because then it's oh, you could just watch something familiar to you already. If I was going to try and get someone into a new medium, it would be something that accurately shows off what's intriguing about that medium, at least to me.
Well, for example, I think that I agree, but what I was trying to say is show them something different, but not something that has the weird fetishy shit that we've come to know.
I know. I said I know that's what you mean. I'm saying the way you worded it was just don't show them something weird, which I wouldn't agree with on that basic saying kind of level.
Something that's just a little bit tricky too is that you never know what anyone is going to look at and think, oh, that's that weird anime thing. For example, my brother was telling me about, basically he grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and Princess Mononoke and stuff, but over the past 5 years or so, he's kind of had a resurgence of trying out other anime, and it started with Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
But he described the kind of epic constant dramatic shouting in Attack on Titan as one of those weird anime things. And I was just kind of interesting. That's not something that I would consider someone to glom on and say, oh, that's a weird anime thing. Because I think about it more as what Cassie said, which is falling on somebody's boobs.
Yeah.
But it also is different for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's and for me also this topic is hard because I try really hard to make specific recommendations based on the person and what I know about them.
That's
for sure.
also really...
Yeah. So, for my dad, I knew that he liked jazz music, and so I was like, hey, Kids on the Slope actually features the music that you grew up listening to. And he also raised me on, old-time suspense drama stories, and so I was like, Monster, bam, we're doing it, you know? So it's for me, I'd really have to know the person. There's always the safe bet of Studio Ghibli films. Of course, is a good one.
And that's another thing is anime films might be a good way to start somebody out too, because it's just a short, in most cases, one and done kind of thing. It's a film. So, and if they like something, say you show them Millennium Actress, maybe you could be like, oh cool, let's show you Paprika and see how weird this gets.
Yes. Oh, true. There's so much out there in movies too, as far as diverse sorts of films that you could show them. I know for a lot of people, and especially when anime was still getting popularized in the West, I mean, the big boom was caused by Akira, and so if you know somebody likes really pulpy, intense stuff and wants to see how fucking bombastic animation can get, you can get that. If they don't believe that anime can express human emotions and real life feelings, then I'm going to have them watch Grave of the Fireflies. That's actually one that I really do like to recommend to people when they think that the field of animation can't tell compelling stories.
Yeah, I think A Silent Voice would also be a good one.
Yep.
In that regard. It's fairly tropeless and it tells a really good story, and it's out, it's beautifully animated. And it's now available for home video release. Hi-yo!
Hey!
Finally!
I saw it in the Barnes & Noble when we went through the mall the other day, and I was like, well, this is strange.
Shoot.
It finally
I gotta
happened.
buy that.
Yeah, you can get it. You can get the regular. I was like, I need the limited edition, so I won't get mine until November, but it is available. It's there. But yeah, I kind of agree to an extent with what Dominic said too, that like showing them something that's out of their comfort level is also sometimes a great way to like start a new interest in anime and also a new genre at the same time. Like if you know somebody's super into, you know, robot movies, like they were super into oh god, what was that movie that came out a few years ago?
Pacific Rim?
Like if you know somebody's like favorite movie is Pacific Rim, you could recommend them like Gundam or something, but why not be like, oh hey, do you also think that pretty girls transforming looks cool, because let me show you that girls can be kick-ass too, and then, you know, show them Precure or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my brother basically got me into anime as a kid through like Dragon Ball and stuff, and then fell off of it, and has only recently like started getting back into it and everything with like JoJo and Attack on Titan and a bunch of other stuff online. And that was one thing is that I did is I actually recommended the old Gundam stuff to him because I knew I knew that was something that was not like super, like he likes JoJo and stuff, which is really weird, but I also knew, you know, like Gundam would be something that was familiar, but also I could get him into, you know, the less, like the more serious ones and the Universal Century and all that stuff. And he's gotten so obsessed with it now. He's like, oh, I want to, you know, pick up all of Universal Century on Blu-ray or DVD or something like that. And I was like, damn, that's more hardcore than me, but, you know, more power to you. So yeah, that was an experience I had, and it was really nice. I enjoyed doing that.
John, have you ever gotten somebody into anime or tried to introduce them to it through a certain show?
I've got a niece and a nephew. The niece was not my fault, actually, but I helped. Yeah, I've brought up my nephew a few times, and like he's come in my room a number of times. He's watched me play Kingdom Hearts, and he's seen all my Gundam kits around my room, and like said, "They're really cool. I want to watch something with them in." And I've been like, for a long time, I was like, "There is a series that is perfect for you, but it's not in English." Only now it is in English, and I've actually thrown it his way, and he's really enjoying it. Which is Build Fighters. He's I actually got him a kit of the Jan Ultron because he likes wolves, and so he's been asking me, "Is it in this one?" It was like, "No, that's Divers, but if you want to get to it, you can eventually because that's there as well." But I got him into watching Digimon, as well.
Nice.
Digimon's a pretty good gateway anime.
My niece, I mostly started off with Ghibli films, but I also got her watching Cardcaptor.
Nice.
But that was after she was more willing to watch in Japanese with subtitles.
Craig.
Yes.
I'm targeting you.
No, it's fine. I just want to make sure I didn't step on anyone's toes.
Step on all of our toes, Craig. It's part of the fun.
Step on them, Craig.
Don't step on my toes.
Us, Craig. Step on us, Craig.
This is getting very weird very quick. So, yeah, I agree with all of what Cammy is saying. Basically, you need to have marketability as well as accessibility in terms of options, language options, closed captions options. If you have a subscription to a service, will you actually be able to watch it? Will it be on television to actually hook them in? Does it have a game component that can hook them in? When it comes to trying to introduce my friends or my family into anime, well, kind of, I was already into anime, so my brothers and sisters knew kind of through osmosis what is anime by like watching Naruto. I recommend dumb action stuff to my brother because he's into shonen, and I say, yo, go watch the JoJo. Go watch the One Punch Man. Did you watch Thunderbolt Fantasy? Because it's insane.
Whoa, whoa,
I also kind of agree that trying to find something that's outside your comfort zone is good. You can get into a different genre altogether, although it could probably turn some people off, but it's worth the risk in that. For example, like, you wouldn't think that Fate Zero would be as cool as it is, or Psychopaths would be as different as it is. And again, going back to Thunderbolt Fantasy, seeing an interesting, like, okay, this is an anime, mind you, but like the storytelling, given the medium, is actually pretty cool, and it can translate pretty well. Try something new, taste test it, and see if you like it. That sort of stuff like that.
You mentioning Shonen Jump made me think of My Hero Academia as well. Because I've also got my nephew watching that.
I know a lot of people, actually, that are starting people on My Hero. I think even my nephew also has started watching it.
You know what? It's such a great time to get people into anime right now as well, because of the amount of ways that it's so accessible. And how many, like, old favorites are getting, like, remakes? Like, I can literally recommend somebody Fruits Basket right now, and I'm so excited.
Yeah!
Like,
that's very true.
And Lord knows what else is going to start coming out. We're getting so many, like, reboots and things that haven't been available digitally before, but people are actually putting them on, like, Funimation and Crunchyroll. And so on and so forth. Like, years ago, it was impossible to watch Series Experiments Lane and stuff like that, but now you can watch it on a streaming service. So...
Nice.
Same with classics like Cyborg 009, Discotek Media is restoring it from the ground up in Blu-ray.
I remember I tried to watch Cyborg 009 when I was in, like, high school or something, and I always got, like... Because I think for a little bit, it was on, like, Toonami or Adult Swim or something.
You are correct.
Yeah.
And I watched it on TV somehow. I think that's how. And then I didn't get to watch everything. And I really liked Cyborg 009. So I was like, how the fuck do I watch the rest of this? And I had nowhere else to watch it, because back then it was impossible. There was no, like, video release, really. And it wasn't available online unless you knew where to look for it. And that was not legal. So... I went for the longest time without finishing it, and I was really sad.
I've never heard of this series before, but now I'm like, shit, I gotta check this out. This sounds cool.
It's really neat.
It's caught my attention a few times, and I've been meaning to watch it, but never been able to find it or get around to it.
The version that's most accessible, the one that Cassie's talking about, was actually not, like, even pirating it was not something you could actually find.
Nope.
Because
I tried.
Oh, wow.
It was basically, it didn't even finish airing on Toonami, you know, and so this new re-release that's coming out, like Craig said, Discotek had to, like, manually go out to a bunch of different people who had all, like, the different parts and of the show
on VHS cassettes.
Yeah, and, like, manually essentially put it all back together, recreate it, and spruce it all up for an actual home release, because outside of that, until now, it was basically impossible to find.
That is really cool.
But it's a reboot, essentially, of an old manga by Shotaro Ishinomori. Or wait,
yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I forget. That might not actually be how you say his last name, and I'm spacing because I'm dumb. But yeah, it's the guy who made Kamen Rider and stuff like that. It's basically considered a classic, and it has multiple versions. But the 2003 version is, like, the one most people actually, like, kind of are concerned about, because it was lost to time, essentially.
Actually, I think you're right. I just looked it up. Shotaro Ishinomori.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I should know that, like, as a thing, because I'm into all his stuff, but I blanked.
That's all good.
You had it. Just don't hesitate. You got it. So also, just to backtrack a little bit, actually, another thing that I had considered was similar to what Cassie mentioned about something, like, because I agree with her take on something that's not, like, too super anime, but also for me, like, even to the degree that anime can just, like, it has a very unique way of expressing stories. I feel like having some sort of kind of, like, supernatural or fantasy sort of universe a little bit is actually pretty palatable for a first try. And so if you consider like kind of the little bit of an alternative world, a good English dub, accessible, and for the fact that I think that it's a very quality anime that crosses boundary lines, my basic like first go-to answer is Full Metal Alchemist or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Like if somebody puts a gun to my head and is like title for Gateway, that's what I'm probably gonna say.
Yeah.
That's what really solidified me as an anime fan, because I had watched anime growing up, but I wouldn't say I was an anime fan until I saw Full Metal Alchemist on TV, and then I became an obsessed weirdo, and now here I am.
I'm so happy for that too.
So I'd say that Full Metal Alchemist is a great gateway anime, the original or Brotherhood, but Brotherhood's probably a better place to start them.
Yeah. I would say Brotherhood, but that's also because I haven't seen all of the original. So yeah, I think that could work as well. Honestly, when I watched the original, I was too young, and then it traumatized me, but I was neck deep in anime already, so
Oh god.
there's that.
Full Metal Alchemist was back in the day when I went out into my living room and recorded anime on TV onto VHSs so I could watch it later, because everything aired at nighttime when I was supposed to be in bed. So I'd like sneak down and ninja into the living room and put like a tape in there and then make sure it was recording, then beeline it back to my room and then like come back 2 hours later and pop it out and then keep up the same like thing like every other night.
Hell yeah.
That reminds me of a time when Yu Yu Hakusho was my jam.
Oh, yeah.
And like, to a point where they aired all of the first arc, the Dark Tournament, Chapter Black, but then when they got to the 4th season, the final arc of it, they took it off of Toonami and then they threw it in some weird ungodly time slot.
They threw it like in the like dead morning, like 6 a.m. or some shit. It was really stupid.
Yeah, I had to literally record VHS because I'm like, why did they put this at 4 or 5 in the morning?
Yeah, I remember when that happened. It was like, oh man, where did Yu Yu Hakusho go? I don't think it ever like actually ended. And then I remember like waking up at some ungodly time in the morning, turning on my TV, and there it was, and I was like, what? How could they do this? But I mean, to be fair, the final arc sucks.
I mean, it really does. It really does. But
yeah, I remember that.
I do agree with you, though, Cammy, that Fullmetal, like, if you say quintessential, like, gateway anime, I'd say, like, that hits mass mainstream appeal, I would say, like, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, or, like, any Shonen Jump property, really.
Yeah, I almost wonder about, like, it's interesting because I feel like you could definitely hook somebody with a long-running shonen series, but I'm also like, do you tell them upright that it's like 400 plus episodes and it hasn't ended?
Listen, I've tried to get my brother into One Piece, and yeah, I had to like explain to my brother what the concept of a filler arc is and what padding is, and at a certain point, I just think his brain turned off, and he was like, whatever, I'm gonna watch a different show than 400 plus episodes. Not worth it. Nope.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's another thing to consider, depending, is does it end?
Personally, I would not recommend. I tend to steer away from recommending stuff like that, because I know if someone was like, hey, watch this thing that's 500 episodes, I'd be like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So
it eventually gets to a point where the task seems so daunting. It's like, why even bother?
I agree that Brotherhood is a great option, just because it is only like 70 episodes or something. It's just incredibly approachable. It contains a lot of the things that I think make anime such a enjoyable medium.
Yeah. So, I mean, does anyone else have any like titles they could throw out?
Did anybody what were your guys' gateway animes? Because like for me, I of
Good
course
question.
like watched Card Captors and I grew up on Sailor Moon, but like I said, I didn't become an anime fan, I feel like, until I started watching Full Metal Alchemist. That's when I was solidified as doomed. So
Gotcha.
what would you guys say your gateway anime was, or maybe like the anime that made you an anime fan, I guess?
I mean, I'd seen a bunch of stuff like beforehand as a kid, like stuff on Toonami and everything. So I was familiar with it, but I don't think I became like actually invested in looking at and finding a bunch of different anime until Gurren Lagann.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That was the one that kind of got me, like, talking about it and looking, finding, like, all the torrents and everything, downloading stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was back then when that show aired. That's what you had to do. So that was a show for me. It's one I would also still kind of recommend just because it does have that style factor, I think, for people. If people like stuff like that, I would recommend it just because it is aesthetically and stylistically, like, very pleasing.
I think my dive into being an anime fan resurged because obviously I grew up on Sailor Moon, but it was when I started watching Inuyasha.
Oh, yeah.
It's not one I would recommend to people, but like it got me on that hype train.
Girl, I was having some Inuyasha nostalgia last night. I get you.
Yes.
I think for me, what really kind of spurred this on was, like, I knew the concept of anime, but this is when, like, the internet was a fresh thing, and I didn't realize what the concept of, like, oh, it's in America, but then they're so farther ahead in Japan. And I was like, okay, so I was watching Naruto, like, Dragon Ball kicked it off, but then the Toonami craze came and went. You watch it and you're just like, okay, I'm invested, but I didn't really go out of my way to find anything until I was like, oh, what is this? Bleach. It's Dragon Ball with swords? Okay, I'm gonna go and try and find that shit. And then that was around the time that Craig discovered the trash show, the epitome of trash, but Craig ate it all up. The Code Geass.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Like, seeing that show develop each and every episode and seeing the mind games and by back then, I think this was around the same time, but, like, I didn't watch it at the same time, but, like, seeing the Death Note, like, isms of it all and the escalation factor of it all, I was like, oh, these are mechs. So it went down from there. Like, I watched a bunch of shit I was on GameSpot forums a lot of the time, and I was like, oh, anime forums, what do we have here? What do we recommend? What is this Fate Stay Night? What is this Haruhi Suzumiya? Just give it all to me. And I've seen reaction posts each week and seeing how it all developed.
For me, it was a friend of mine in school asked me if I was watching Dragon Ball Z and Gundam Wing. He also tried to get me into Tenshin Moyo, but I couldn't latch on to that one for some reason. But yeah, it was mostly those two, and then he dug out these old VHS tapes that he had that apparently originally belonged to his dad, but he had a collection of them, and there were various different anime movies, and one that I remember really latching on to was Vampire Hunter D.
Oh.
That led me to discovering that Sci-Fi had Sci-Fi Channel had an anime slot, like once a week of like sometime gone midnight, that I would set up a VHS tape to record every night, or every night they had the slot go in to find whatever was on, and that's how I discovered Akira and Ghost in the Shell, Macross Plus, and Macross 2 as well. And yeah, I mostly went through that route, and also Card Captors led me to hunting down Cardcaptor Sakura in Japanese, and that's how I got into watching things with subtitles. Watching things in Japanese with subtitles. Although some things on Sci-Fi Channel was in Japanese with subtitles, thinking about it. So I started reading subtitles because of those, thinking about it.
Very cool.
But yeah, it was mostly things on TV that I could watch that led me to becoming as big in the fandom as I am.
So I feel like, I guess, the takeaway with this topic for me, and we mentioned it again, is that ultimately, it depends on the person. But there are factors that you can consider that I feel like we outlined here.
Ultimately, it depends on the person, but you should all watch Brotherhood, is the take.
Yeah,
I love it.
Just watch Brotherhood.
Mwah, perfect. Thank you, Dom.
Please watch Brotherhood if you haven't already.
Yeah, at least give it a try.
Does anyone know if Paul's watched Brotherhood?
I don't know. We can ask him.
Yeah,
Hey, Paul, if you haven't, go watch Brotherhood.
it's really good.
But with that said, I think we're going to be good to move on to our review for the episode. So thanks again, Paul, for this topic. This was super fun. And obviously, if you are a patron of... Oh, Cassie, remind me. How many dollars do you pay to get topic requests?
Topic requests, I believe that is the $15 tier. Paul is part of the $20, but where you get a lovely handmade song from Cammy, by the way. Great tier. But
Hey.
yeah, $15 gets you either a anime that we'll review or a topic.
That's right.
And
Okay.
since he's part of the $20 tier, he also gets the $15 tier. So, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're interested in making us talk about something like Paul did, then consider that $15 tier. Now we're going to move on to our review of Asobi Asobase, Workshop of Fun, which is the caption thing that Crunchyroll has. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's on my anime list, too, so it must just be a thing.
Oh, okay. The Workshop of Fun. And Asobi Asobase is done by Studio Lerche. You probably know them for their work on Danganronpa, Kuzu no Honkai, and Ass Class. There's definitely...
AS.
Oh, you just reminded me of another joke in the show that I found really funny. Okay. So, we'll get into that, but first, the synopsis. During recess, Olivia, a foreign transfer student who doesn't know English, plays a game of Look the Other Way with Hanako Honda, a loudmouthed airhead. Their rowdy behavior spurs the ire of Kasumi Nomura, a deadpan loner constantly teased by her older sister for her tendency to lose games. Not willing to compete, Kasumi declines Olivia's offer to join in the fun, but eventually gets involved anyway and dispenses her own brand of mischief. Soon, a strange friendship blossoms between the particular trio, and they decide to form the Pastimers Club, where they are free to resume their daily hijinks. Whether it be failing to learn English, trying desperately to become popular, or getting caught by teachers at the wrong time, school life will never be boring when the girls of Asobi Asobase are up to their hilarious antics. So, starting with story and a bit of recap, I remember the season that this came out, there were 3 comedy anime, and I had all of them up for impressions. Along with, it was like Chio School Road, Grand Blue, Dreaming, and Asobi Asobase.
Yeah, it was summer last year, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you, Craig. Yes. 1, I learned don't stack your impressions with, like, a bunch of comedies, because you're gonna get tired of everything and think that nothing is funny anymore. Second, Asobi Asobase definitely was the strongest out of the 3 as far as delivering good jokes, and I passed it for us for review.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's a comedy, and we can start on story. Do we think it's a funny comedy?
Yeah, like when it comes to comedies, it's less about talking about the story and more talking about the story elements.
Mm-hmm.
And how well they're done. And awesome.
Yeah.
Where I would start with it is I would say that the show is really funny at times and then not very funny at others. It's either hit or miss. And when it misses, it's cringy. But when it hits, it's hilarious.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember watching this show like last winter, and basically I kind of like hearkened it to like Pop Team Epic, because like much akin to that show, it has just random skits. Asobi Asobase has like three skits per episode, and if you don't like one, you may like another, sort of thing.
It's like a 4-comma kind of style humor. I don't know if the manga was 4-comma, but from judging by the way that the series goes about it, I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
I think I would describe the humor as this show obviously as like the 4 sketch comedy, but it also did jokes based on either punchlines or shock value a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it loves shock value.
It loves shock
Yes.
value.
I mean, I think the animators love the shock of value as by the faces.
Not even just
Exactly.
the faces. There's a lot of stuff going on, even sometimes in the backgrounds.
Yeah, or just the things that come out of their mouth, or actually I really started to enjoy a lot of the vocal changes.
Mhm.
Like there's a lot of screeching and like high-pitched screaming,
Yeah.
but there's also just strange accents or like weird effects put on the voices. And my favorite thing actually was when characters would start talking in a sweet voice and then they delivered the punchline in this really low, judgmental, condescending voice. And I just love that so much. The fact that the shock value was expressed through multitudes of ways, which was either punchlines, voice acting, or insane faces, was fun. You know, it varied it up and it did make that sort of comedy effective for the most of the show. But I would agree with Cassie that there were times it didn't hit and I was just kind of sitting there like, I want to play my gotcha game or something.
Some of the humor was just borderline, like, offensive and cringy.
Yes.
Very crude.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of those shows that like is right on that edge, and sometimes it doesn't really keep itself in check and goes over the edge and does something that it probably shouldn't have done.
Yeah, and you're just kind of like, why is this funny?
Yeah, like there's a joke, for example, where they keep trying to look under this girl's skirt, which, even with not the surrounding problem that it poses, which is really, really bad, and mildly transphobic, trying to violate somebody's personal space is a joke just because it makes you feel uncomfortable it's not a punchline.
I didn't like that one. This one was luckily short, unlike that one, which carried throughout the show, which was definitely a big issue. I didn't like the one about, I think it was like the master pastimer or something like that. And they had like weird, like semi-tan face with like tribal designs and stuff. And I know that like tanning in itself is kind of more an implication. It's not supposed to be like blackface, but like with the designs and stuff, it just reminded me of blackface, and I was very uncomfortable until that scene ended. So I was not a big fan of that one. I did think if you guys were open to it, though, we could discuss some of the skits that we did like, because I think that there were a few. I have titles listed down in my notes.
Before we even go on to that, just to piggyback one more second off when you said they use shock value in a clever way, the openings and endings are an example of that. We'll probably talk about more of that in production, but the opening is, like, when I first watched Asobi Asobase and it opened with the opening, I was like, oh, this is going to be a nice little cute slice of life romp.
And I on the other hand was like, oh man.
Yeah, like, oh, this is not what I signed up for.
I was like, oh, this is gonna be boring. I remember I saw when Cammy got this, and it was just like the picture, and I remember reading the synopsis. I was just like, oh, that looks like something I would not give a single shit about.
But then you get to the ED, and it's the exact opposite. It's just as manic as the show is, and they have these little puppet shows as well as the previews. So from beginning to end, you never stop getting some sort of entertainment value.
The more I watch the OP, the more I'm like, maybe this is me watching and reading too much Yuri, but there's a lot of symbolism and like hints to Yuri in the OP, which isn't present in the series at all.
Yeah.
No, if anything, the way they like approach female relationships is also cringy, but...
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, you were saying to talk about skits that we really liked, or just moments?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the first one that got me, and I messaged Cassie about it with like screen caps because I was screaming, was everything that had to do with like the butt laser and Kasumi's fan fiction.
Yeah, the butt laser was the highlight for me too.
And guys, we're not spoiling because this is no context. You will know there's a butt laser, but you don't know when it's coming.
God damn it.
Everything that surrounded it, and the fact is that it just, like, it kept going. It kept ramping up into, like, and then there was, like, an end continuity, and it was just insane. So, that was one of my favorites. Yeah, alongside fan fiction. There's just a lot about fan fiction that made me laugh really hard.
The fan fiction scene literally killed me, put me in my grave, then also set me aflame so I could be scattered into the ocean. I was so fucking dead and gone during that. In, like, the best way. It was the best, like, skit for me. It was so good.
You became, like, a comedic phoenix.
Yes.
That skit.
Yes.
So for me, I have a memory of a goldfish, but thankfully Crunchyroll has saved me in some occasions with the show by reposting clips. And one skit that I recall vividly because of Crunchyroll was not only like the makeup with Honoka trying to put on makeup, but it's it's being horribly done because they don't know how to put on makeup on other girls. But there's also there's a haircut clip as well, and that just as it progressively goes awry, I was like, holy shit, this is why you don't cut other people's hair unless you're professional.
There was one skit that made me go, oh look, it's Teenage Cassie.
I'm so worried about which one this
Wait!
is.
It was the ones that How Are Babies Made.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's about right.
And then
Wait,
I've
what?
got a note here that's like, oh look, she's Teenage Cassie, except for the 25 babies things. Cassie hates odd numbers. That's the note I've got written down. And
when
then
they take
symmetrical
care of
docking.
the teacher's friend's baby or whatever,
Oh,
and they're trying to
yeah.
remember, and they were trying to figure out where babies come. That was a good skit.
yep.
I actually wanted to mention the baby, specifically the
Oh
way
my
that the baby acts and the way that they animated it. I lost my fucking shit. Like, I think it's also just because I have a weird, like, viewpoint on, like, babies and young children because of working in preschool. So I just really enjoyed that they, like, fucking went ham and playing with that dynamic. I thought it was so funny.
Wasn't there like a hidden layer of comedy with the baby too? Not to
Yes,
spoil
yeah,
it.
no, like, everything they did with the baby was great.
Unlike Craig, where I'm actually blanking on a lot of them, the butt laser thing was the highlight that stuck in my mind the most.
You seem to laugh a lot whenever the girl that you liked the most, I can't remember her name, was very vindictive.
Yeah, she was a fucking awful human being, and I enjoyed it. But I was mainly into the skits that involved them like playing like stupid games, the ones that actually like stuck to the actual premise of the show, where they played like stupid games with each other and like would completely mess up the rules or like screw each other over, and usually involved a lot of like slapstick and stuff like that. I generally enjoyed that sort of thing the most.
Dom, do you recall, this is one I also had listed, though I didn't really know how to phrase it, but it was like a board game that Hanako made, and it was just a really bad punishment game, and they like kept playing it.
Yeah.
And
That
then
one was
they
good.
were like, I don't want to play this anymore. And then they had to keep going.
Yeah.
Like that was a great example of that sort of like actually sticking to the script. Like,
We need to have an Annie chat box game night, and we should reenact all of the games they play.
No.
oh no. Oh no.
There's one where they play the game where they like put their hand down and try and like not stab their hand really fast.
Okay, let's not do that one. Let's
Yeah.
not do that one. Let's not do the ones that would actually cause us physical harm.
I think that's most of them.
We could do the punishment game one. That'd be fun.
There was a lot of referential humor as well, and jokes and parodies of other series and franchises.
Yeah.
I remember in the first episode, one of the things that they kept on doing with, it was the second episode, when it went to Hanako with her tennis club. They kept on going into the style referencing the ping pong anime.
I totally didn't catch that. Okay.
Yeah, that was another thing I loved about Hanako, is she was like such a vindictive bitch about like people who are more popular are prettier than her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. You always laugh, especially when it came down to like her friends too. Whenever they would do or say something that would make them even seem slightly better than her, she'd be like, "You fucking bitch," and it was very funny. She would turn on them in an instant.
I remember there's an episode or a skit rather where it dealt with her fashion sense, and she would call up her friends about it and be like, "You lied to me."
Speaking of which, I guess we're already talking about characters. Should we move on to that?
Yeah, we totally can. Yeah, that being said, just to quick recap, Dominic, Hanako was your favorite?
Yes.
Want to go more into that?
I mean, I explained that I liked how she's, you know, a vindictive bitch. And I love, she had the most faces. She
did have
she had the most faces, and she like screeched a lot. She did that thing where if something, you know, got on, like pissed her off or, you know, surprised her, she would screech. Like she sounded like a banshee. And I was like, "Oh, you trash garbage human being. I love you."
Honestly, by the end of every episode, I was just like, how does this voice actress take care of her voice? Like, how is she not destroyed and wrecked from performing Hanako?
They probably had to do multiple takes, too, so it's like, oh god, honey, are you okay?
Yeah. Whew. Cassie, tell us about your favorite girl.
Ah, yes. Olivia was my favorite because, one, she was my favorite aesthetically. I just love how she looks. She's very pretty, and fun to look at. But also, I just love how most of her problems were things that she put herself into. Like, for example, with the English and constantly lying about how she knew English. Those were also some of my favorite skits. And I was really sad because, like, halfway through the anime, they completely abandoned that trope. And she kind of just becomes kind of a background character, and her next joke is just that she smells bad. And, and that wasn't funny to me, so I think halfway through the show I felt like she got gypped. And the other two girls became much funnier than her. When at first I thought they were all really funny, and by the end Olivia kind of fell off. But I still love her a lot, and I think that some of her jokes, especially at the beginning, were some of my favorites. She also has some pretty damn good faces. The smug faces the best smug faces come from Olivia.
She has some damn good faces, and like you said, she's just so fucking cute. I'm also on the hype train of Olivia's aesthetic. Like, she is adorable, and it's really enjoyable watching her play dumb in a lot of circumstances.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, which she definitely does for, like, her defense, and then she's, like, dying on the inside, which is great. Yeah, Olivia, when I first initially watched the show for impressions, was my favorite. I was surprised that in the latter half of the show, I actually started to really enjoy Kasumi's character, and that's why she is my icon this time. I think a seed was planted with fan fiction, because damn if that ain't hashtag relatable.
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved, and I love the fact that, like, usually I'm not a huge fan of characters who are, like, super scared of men when girls are like, it's a man, so scary. But, like, she would get, like, defensive and, like, sometimes, like, try to beat the shit out of them. And then at the same time, she's writing fucking terrible objectifying fan fiction. It's great. So they managed to do that dynamic of her very well. And also, like I mentioned before, a lot of her punchlines were delivered in that way where instead of having her voice be shrill, her voice just fucking drops. And, like, they give her this really condescending look. And I started to, like, super enjoy it. And I just found that a lot of the skits that she was involved in, especially in the last half, were the ones that interested me the most. So, yeah, that was kind of out of nowhere, but I ended up really liking her character.
She, like, lives and breathes the style of the shy, quiet one, but she's actually the most intense. It's really great.
Yeah, they did really well at having the glasses girl, but not making her just the glasses girl. And I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, of the main three, Kasumi was my favorite.
What about who's on your icon, though, John?
For my icon, I actually have Oka, who is one of the side characters. She's from the Occult Club.
Mm-hmm.
Just a number of times that she came up, and, like, initially things went like, this is gonna end horribly, like with the solo hide and seek, I think it was, with the stuffed toy. But like she had these like moments where I was like, "Oh, that's really sweet." Aw. Though there was one moment with like one of her friends who teleported away. When they went to the teacher and turns out the friend was just ill. That was a whole story. When that came up, I was like, there was a bit of me that was like, is it wrong that the first thought I had was, when someone goes missing, don't they usually say they've fallen ill as to not worry anyone?
Who knows, man?
So
Who knows?
that was my first thought, but no, friend was actually just ill. We find out what with, but yeah, so. But no, she had some really sweet moments, and I actually came to really like her.
I liked her voice acting a lot too. She also had a very distinct performance.
She did, yeah.
Her design is cute AF too. I like her design a whole lot.
She got the best hat. All right, Craig.
Craig.
Yeah,
come on, Craig. Let's do it.
What a good boy, Maida, the butler. He comes on a moment's notice, and he will provide any service for his lady. And basically, he just materializes out of the ether and freaks everyone out. And there's much more to him than meets the eye. I will not spoil that for you at home, but man, his interactions with Hanako are pretty priceless, and he's got a great origin story.
Origins. She's the only one with the origin story, to be fair.
I know. What a well-developed character.
He has the best origin story.
Yeah.
He has the most character development in the entire show.
I did, like, as far as the minor characters go, like, he was the one that I always appreciated whenever he was on screen.
Mm.
Like,
He was great.
Mhm.
Yeah, he always had something positive to contribute.
I think the best part, too, is that he is a genuinely good guy, but he comes off as the most creepy motherfucker. And it's great, because he's a good dude, but he doesn't seem to understand personal space, or, like, just how creepy he really is, and that's part of his charm.
Mm.
He just tries to help. Might make things worse occasionally, but tries to help.
He does. He tries his best.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're getting at is Asobi Asobase has a pretty damn good cast for the most part.
Mm.
Yeah, there were like some side characters that I didn't enjoy too much, or like didn't
Weren't
get excited about
handled
seeing,
too well.
Yeah, but like, meh. Overall, I mean, you need a strong cast of characters to carry a comedy, and the characters that we outlined for at least some of us in different contexts always made the show really funny. So keep that in mind. And then another thing that definitely helped carry the comedy was in the production. Craig, hit us with some production notes.
Oh, okay.
If you got them.
Yeah, I do. No,
Craig's credit corner.
I just I was rather caught off guard because typically I have to say, do you want to hear about it? And everyone.
Craig's credit corner.
Ooh, you have a jingle now. Go, bro. Go forth.
The director is Seiji Kishi. He directed. Wait, do you have a problem with Kishi?
Seiji Kishi, the man I love to hate.
Directed Danganronpa and Persona 4 the animation. Has also directed a bunch of other stuff. Dom, why do you hate this person?
Well, I mentioned this on the Yuki Yuna episode because he directed that. You mentioned the Persona 4 anime. Yeah, he did that.
Yep.
It's a dumpster fire. He did the Devil Survivor 2 anime, also not very good.
I hear it's bad.
But he did Carnival Phantasm, which is fucking hilarious. And he also did this, I guess, which is also really, mostly for the most part pretty funny. So he's a while. He's pretty good at comedy. It's just anytime he tries to do anything that isn't completely just comedy, it's not good.
Yeah. The writer is Yuko Kakihara, series composition for Cells at Work and Aikatsu Friends. Music is Masato Koda, and they have made the music for the Konosuba franchise. Sources...
Another comedy.
Yeah.
Huh.
And sources a manga, so...
Yeah, I really liked, and again, for reasons, like Cassie mentioned, again, this show just really, really likes to play with expectations in, like, every single way that it can. So along with having, like, a very soft opening, just the overall, the visual style of the show with its pastel color palettes and, like, very soft, thin outlines, it's so in contrast to what's going on. And it's fun to look at, but it also like plays into the meta of how the comedy of the show works based on shock value. And I really appreciate that. Not to mention just all of the freaky faces that like are almost done in like different mediums. Like, and sometimes they use like full just photographs for things.
Yeah, Lerche definitely had fun with those shock faces. As you said, it lulls you in with the cute opening, the bright poppy colors, right? I mean, they're like thin lines, and then it just gets all scratchy with the shock face. Like, even the opening skit where Hanako and Olivia like first are introduced to Kasumi, and then they do the rock paper scissors, and then you're like, God damn, that punchline is delivered in such a way that it went to 0 to 60 in no time at all. That's intense.
Yeah. Did y'all appreciate the production?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was really nice to look at, and it betrayed and met my expectations all the time. So it was interesting. It was a show that didn't have to be as well animated or as colorful as it is, and it was. So good on it.
Yeah. I don't really think that's a very good point. I don't necessarily think that it was lacking either. Like, it had a good amount of animation for what it was, and like it's one of the few shows recently that I can think of where I like don't have any complaints. I guess Luluco too. But yeah, good production overall. Did anybody else like the little translation card, "Sore kara doshita no," that would just show up? Because I really like that.
They were cute. I like that.
Yeah, that was good.
I also like how they did a lot of like I talked about this earlier, but I like how they varied up how they introduced the show with the opening, which was again really pretty looking. I also really liked the opening of this show. Even as a standalone, I thought it was really nice. And then the ending is vastly different. And then of course the next episodes were introduced most of the time by puppets. They went away for some reason.
Yeah, they went away for a couple of episodes, and then they came back for one, and then they were gone the last episode.
Yeah, but I liked those. I thought they were funny, and it was a nice, different, interesting way. They could have just put up a title card, but instead they decided to be weird, and that's what Asobi Asobase excels at, is being fucking weird. And I loved it for that.
Speaking of fucking weird, in the soundtrack, like, I remember at one point, because I was watching it in the living room, and Get didn't have his headphones on, and then he's just like, "Is that the Star Spangled Banner?" And I was like, "Yep, being played badly on recorders. That's it. That's the soundtrack." It's just like, that was appreciated. Like, again, just the production lent itself to the comedy. I love the fuck out of the ending. It's like
yeah, the ending made me so happy. Like every episode.
Yes.
See, when I was watching it, I was binging it like a few episodes at a time, so I kind of skipped the ending a lot of the time.
Oh, Craig!
It's one of the best parts of the show.
Criminal.
No, let me finish. I watched it a few times over, and I was like, "Yep, this is basically what the show is: chaos." It is chaos. The opening lures you into a false sense of security. And then by the end of the show, you're primed and ready to like scream the entire freaking time with death metal. And then sprinkling on top, you have the puppets that are shooting rockets and lasers everywhere. And you're just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on anymore, but apparently Lerche's having fun.
I think that's actually a great way to put it, Craig. Lerche had fun.
Yeah.
It shows in their production.
Yeah. All right. How do we feel about moving into final ratings?
Ratings.
I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Sure, it's a simple show. A simple conversation is fine.
Alrighty, righty. Who's gonna go first? John, go first.
Oh, hi.
On the spot. No mercy.
How does it feel under the bus, John? Does it hurt? Do you feel the wheels grinding your bones into sawdust?
So in this episode, we had stepping on people. Now we have a bus running John over and killing him. This shows.
I didn't say killing him. I said breaking his bones.
You're right. He could
Hey,
probably survive that.
We're taking the tip from Lerche. We're having fun.
Yes!
Yeah, this series, I wish I had spaced out the episodes a bit more and didn't marathon it as much as I did. But that being said, I did still really enjoy it, start to finish, to be honest. Yeah, there were jokes that were hit and miss, but I think with a comedy series like that, you're gonna have that anyway, because comedy is subjective. That being said, I did still really enjoy it, really liked it. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give it a like it. A strong like it, but I like it.
Nice. Dom, are you ready?
I'm never ready.
Well, you're on! Have fun!
Oh, fuck. Yeah, Asobi Asobase was... it aired summer, right?
Yep.
Summer 2018? Yeah. In summer 2018, it was one of those shows that I generally enjoyed watching weekly. Me and Cassie basically kept up with it pretty much every single week. Yeah, I was more into it in the beginning. I think the more I watched it, the more my opinion of the jokes and overall the show in general kind of just, it wasn't really surprising me as much anymore. I think it's one of those shows where, like, at the beginning, it's just, it hits you with that element of surprise, and then eventually, as you hit the end, you're just kind of like, okay, I've kind of seen what the show can do. But I generally enjoyed watching it every week. Aside from some rather crude and generally offensive jokes here and there, it never really bugged me. So I give it a like it.
Okay. Cassie or Craig? Cassie or Craig? Or John? Wait, Craig.
I went first.
I'm losing my track.
We're gonna
here,
make
guys.
John. No, wait, John. You have
John.
to do your review again.
You have to go twice.
John, you get the honor of picking who goes next. Cassie or Craig?
Oh, I get to pick. Okay, Craig.
Okay. So I watched this show in the winter season when I was just trying to get ahead in the production, and I enjoyed the show. I liked it a lot. I honestly was kind of taken aback by the humor at first, and then eventually it kind of I was like, I don't get the appeal of this show. Like, I remember Cass and Dom eating it up every single Saturday, and I get after the first episode, I was like, I don't get it. But then by episode 3, I was like, okay, I really get it. And it's just, again, as Dom said, it's kind of a crude, kind of a dickish, mean sense of humor, because really they are friends, but they're kind of dicks to each other, and they kind of are mean to everyone else around them. But that being said, I enjoyed the humor such as it is, and if you don't like one skit, then there are 2 other skits in the episode. You could probably watch this show in any, no particular order, so if you find an episode with, a set of skits that you like, say, hey, taste test this episode and see if you like it, random friend over here. You can watch this show as girls, call each other names and beat the shit out of each other. Yeah. So I liked it.
Cool beans. What about you, Cassie?
Sure. So, like Dominic mentioned previously, every season this seems to happen where we find a bunch of shows that we like, but we only pick 1 or 2 to actually stick with and actually watch all the way through. or mostly all the way through. We will finish Zombieland Saga someday. Someday. But for the most part, we pick one and we stick with it. This season is Demon Slayer Yaiba. That season, it was Asobi Asobase. God, I can't talk today.
You got it.
I'm
so proud of you.
First try. Anyway, this show was really important to me because it was that thing that I shared with Dominic every week. So it gets that layer of bias. It's that show we watched together.
Yes.
But overall, I think the show was actually just really enjoyable. I would say that there needs to be a trigger warning that there is some transphobic and homophobic things that are displayed and not in the best way. And they made me really uncomfortable. So if those kind of things make you wary, just be aware that they are in the show, but they are few and far between, and most of the skits are just the girls being awful to each other or those around them, or just putting themselves in precarious situations that they have to try and get out of and fail terribly. It's great. It's fun. It's one of those shows that's kind of like, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I think is what it's called, where it's just a bunch, where you just have a lot of fun watching awful people have awful things happen to them or being awful to each other. It's the anime It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Wow, that's pretty good.
That is a good way of putting it.
So if you liked that live action show, you might like this silly anime. I liked the show. I think it's fun. I think that I would possibly go back and rewatch it if it got like an English dub or something, because I think that it would lend itself really good to an English dub, and I tend to love English dub comedies, and I would more than likely enjoy it watching it through again. I think that the jokes do hit really hard when they want to, and sometimes they fall flat, but overall, the entire piece was pretty good. I'd recommend people to this restaurant.
I like it. A solid Yelp review for Asobi Asobase.
Yeah! There we go!
Okay, so then moving on to me, this is tricky for me because this show, I think, is one of those shows that for me is dependent on the way that it's watched. And just due to the way that I've been handling circumstances, I binged this show, and I would recommend you do not binge it. I think that this show works really well as like a every week or like, just occasionally when you want to, because it is such a distinct and like very in your face type of comedy. And I believe it was Dominic who said, it's like a trick that is shown to you. And unfortunately for me, the more I binged it, I got pretty tired of the trick pretty soon. I found a lot more of the jokes, like when they landed and they were really good, but it was becoming more of a balance of like, this is like 60% kind of mediocre for me, I'm here, and then it would be really funny. But again, I really do think that is in part due to the way that I watched it. When I was asked about my final thoughts on it when I finished it, and Get asked me how it was, I was just like, it does a really, really cool thing that like I totally recommend everybody check out, and I enjoy checking it out. But by the end of the show, I didn't have the same feeling that I get from comedies that I really like, where I'm like, damn, I'm gonna miss these cast of characters. I'm gonna miss the jokes and just seeing them do something all the time. It felt like for me, I saw it, I appreciated what it did, I'm good. So for and it's just probably me and whatever my sense of comedy is. So for me, I'm gonna give it a check it. If I'm being like in detail, I would give it like a check at 0.5 because I think it is close to a like. And obviously for other, I know I abuse that term so much, I'm sorry.
I love it. Check at 0.5. It's good.
Yeah. And obviously, it's a really successful and funny show to a lot of people. I've seen other people who, when they checked it out, said that it was one of their new favorite comedies. So I think it has that absolute acclaim. I just think that due to circumstances, it ended up being like okay for me, but a good okay. So you should definitely check it out, at least the first couple episodes, just to really get everything that it's trying to provide for you.
Right on.
And if you decide to stick with it, space it out.
Yeah, for sure. And I will forever be headbanging and like screaming the ending because it's just amazing. And for a recommendation, I've only actually seen a part of this show, but from what I have seen, I do think that it's a good fit. I'm going to recommend Yuri, which also is a slice-of-life comedy about a club where it really only exists for its members to slack off and talk about things. It's a bunch of girls just talking about ridiculous shit. and overreacting, and it's apparently pretty popular for a lot of people. So it is a bit more like actually considering like the girls' love undertones, which you'd think because Yuri. But I think they both have a similar kind of like character dynamics and the same type of comedy. So I would bet that you might enjoy it. So that being said, we are gonna close on out for the night. Thank you again for listening to episode 110. Before you go, I do have a couple social links for you. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us at twitter.com/AnnieChatbox. You can send us an email at anniechatmail@gmail.com, which we will very likely read on air if you tell us things, be they good or bad. And if you want to listen to us, you can do so on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, or YouTube. And if you want to get in on that sweet $15 Patreon tier where you can suggest topics for us, go visit our Patreon at patreon.com/AnnieChatbox. Hang out with the Cool Kids Club along with Sarah, CorpsyAnn, Carol, Suki, and Paul, who are AKA some of the best people in the entire world. And speaking of people that are the best in the entire world, you know how Craig's one of those people? Well, you can listen to him even more at Save Our Progress, soundcloud.com/Save Our Progress, who recently released their take on the past 2 anime seasons because they are trying to follow the coattails of us, their sister podcast, the Annie Chatbox. And let's pretend I plugged them about 3 more times because I think they plug us in that episode like 6 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesus.
A lot.
Yeah.
Zach described it as the fast food of anime impressions. We are the sit-down restaurant while you come and go with Save Our Progress, and we'll probably give you indigestion, but you keep coming back anyway because we are the quote-unquote anime experts over at Save Our Progress.
Me, an expert? That's very.
I mean, they were talking about Save Our Progress, but if we want to toot our own horns.
Oh,
I mean,
you guys are the experts?
Yeah, that's what they're claiming to be.
The quote-unquote anime experts.
Yeah, we gonna have to war.
Wow! Dom's like, I'm not an anime expert, but now you're like, no, you're not. You're no expert.
What is it?
I mean,
good
I'm
for?
not. If I'm not an expert, you guys are.
Absolutely nothing.
I just like the character development that Dom has had where they first said that they were not a weeb, and now it's just, I'm not an anime expert. Good development right there. Thank you, Dom.
That's the same thing. Same meaning.
I beg to differ.
It is very different.
I think it's the same thing to me. I'm the one who said it. I'm the one who gets to pick what it means.
We gotta go watch Detective Pikachu, so we're gonna go and do that.
Anime Janai.
That's not an anime. Anime
Have a good night, everybody!
I'm not a weeaboo!
Pika!
Bye-bye!
Pika Pika!
It's anime adjacent media, Dom.
Oh my fucking god.